Hello. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Maximize Business Value with Cloud-Based ERP. I'm happy to let you know that today we have three speakers with us. One is Michael Fawcett, he's from IDC. He's a Group Vice President for Software Business Solutions. We also have two of our customers, NetSuite customers, Alan Morrison from iAutomation and Neil Collins from Roku. I would like to introduce our first speaker, Michael Fawcett. Michael is, like I said, Group Vice President of Software Business Solutions, which encompasses research and consulting in enterprise software applications, including ERP, SCM, CRM, PLM, collaboration, and social applications. Michael is a published author, blogger, and accomplished public speaker on software, social media, and software services strategies. Prior to joining IDC, Michael had senior consulting and services roles with 7 software vendors, including Autodesk, PeopleSoft, MRO. Having spent an extensive amount of time working with software end users throughout his career, Michael has a business process-oriented and end-user-focused approach to software research and analysis. Welcome, Michael. We also have two of our customers. First one is Alan Morrison, who's a Vice President of Manufacturing at iAutomation. He's been with iAutomation for past 8 years. He has held multiple positions at iAutomation. He's a Director of Operations, Quality Assurance Manager, and Utility Manager. Prior to iAutomation, Alan spent 21 years at Siemens Automotive Electronics, where he held various positions, including manufacturing engineer, sensor design engineer, manager of manufacturing engineering. Alan's area of specialty is process development and yield improvement in high-volume manufacturing. Welcome, Alan. And lastly, we have Neil Collins, business systems analyst from Roku. Neil is a business intelligence leader in Silicon Valley, focused on fast-growth startups. He specializes in fostering teamwork while leveraging cloud-based solutions to improve productivity and business performance. Neil has successfully led multiple ERP and CRM implementations in the consumer electronics and solar power industries. Currently, Neil works at Roku, where he oversees development of new solutions, end-user support, financial IT compliance, and automation management. Welcome, Neil. All right, so let's get started. Before we get started, I would like to talk to you about NetSuite, who we are and what we do. NetSuite is a publicly held company. We provide cloud-based business software solutions. In addition to financial ERP, the company offers a broad suite of applications, including accounting, CRM, professional services automation, and e-commerce that enable companies to manage most of their core business operations in a single integrated suite. We deliver all this via internet as in a pay-as-you-go model, and a cloud-based solution, a true cloud-based solution. We have over 16,000 organizations using NetSuite to run their business worldwide. As you can see, we have some of the marquee customers such as Groupon, Roku, Qualcomm, iAutomation, Box, using our solution to run their entire business on NetSuite. We have over 2,200 employees worldwide, and our estimate for this year is about $400 million for annual revenue. We are rated one of the fastest growing cloud ERP solution by Gartner. So why do our customers are looking to move to cloud? When we talk to our customers, they tell us the reason why they move to cloud is because most of the times they are overwhelmed with tactical issues such as reducing licensing costs, pursuing instance consolidation, managing upgrades with the on-premise ERP. This leaves little time for strategic planning on how ERP can support the pace of their business change, and global growth. The dominant question that they have to ask is, how can the ERP deliver more value and support the needed business agility in today's environment? So our customers' primary reason for moving to cloud are they want to standardize their solutions that they have. Most often than not, they have point solutions. They have maybe they acquired a company or maybe going global, and they end up having many different solutions. And it's very difficult to maintain when you have limited resources. So they want to standardize that. This is one of the reasons that they move to cloud, because it's easier to do that. Also, another reason that they moved to cloud is that they have either acquired or they merged with another company, inheriting many different systems. Having to do that, how can they quickly go to market in new markets or roll out new products if they have multiple systems that gives them no visibility across the entire business? So one of the things that they're looking to do is to standardize and easily roll out cloud-based solution because it takes a lot less time to roll cloud-based solution out. Another reason is that if they're entering new market, if you don't know whether you are going to be successful in a new market, you don't want to invest so much money in IT infrastructure or hiring IT people across the world. So the cloud solution allows them to accelerate expansion in new market because the footprint is low. Vendors such as NetSuite takes care of all the hardware. They don't need to worry about investing in the hardware or investing in IT infrastructure. So cloud enables that quick expansion in new market. Or if maybe your business model is changing, for example. Maybe you have one type of a billing before, you were only selling products, now you're selling services. So you need to do recurring revenue, for example. You have a subscription-based business now. How do you adopt these changes quickly and gain a competitive advantage? So cloud solution for our customers enables them to do that. So there's one of the other reasons that they move to cloud. And of course, new channels. If you up until now just going to market with direct sales, and now you want to introduce a channel partners, or you want to go, if you're expanding in another country and your go-to-market strategy is via channel partners, how do you do that? You may need to expand the e-commerce. The revenue streams were only just selling in a storefront before, but now you have e-commerce business model. How do you do that? So cloud solutions like NetSuite enables them to do that. And when we provide an integrated business suite, it allows them to get a complete visibility across their business. And that's a key thing that they're all looking for when they move to cloud. Other thing is that, employees, as our customers expand globally or adapt new business models, they tell us that their workforce is increasingly distributed and decentralized. Providing access to same data in real time on any device at any time from anywhere in the world for their employees and partners outside the company firewall is critical. This is a key thing. We all experience that. We are able to work from anywhere, any device. And how do you enable that? The cloud solution, Cloud ERP solutions such as NetSuite lends itself to enable this connectivity, mobility, and self-service that the companies are looking for. As we all know, we all are struggling with resources. We never have enough resources to do work. Self-service becomes critical for companies to be successful in this environment. Having a system that enables users to create their own report or dashboards becomes vital to their success and to be competitive. Cloud solutions such as NetSuite enables them to do that. And like I said, NetSuite supports your mobile and distributed workforce. And that's why the customers tell us their primary reason to move to cloud is that they want to be able to get a real-time visibility from anywhere at any time. And a solution like ours enable that. That's the reason they move to cloud. At this point, I would like to hand over to Michael Fawcett from IDC to take us through some of the trends that they are seeing as they do research and talk to their client as to what they're seeing, how companies are embracing cloud, and what value that they're gaining out of embracing cloud-based ERP. Michael?
Great. Thanks, Vishruth. I've been watching the cloud trend for several years, and I think as a firm, we spend a lot of time looking at this because obviously we've transitioned to a point now where cloud-based applications is really the default way that companies look to and buy and consume, deploy applications. And when the trend started, we're 16, 17 years into this now, but 15, 16 years ago, it was really common to see companies focus around very specific, contained, almost departmental kind of application deployments. But over time, and particularly accelerated during the recession and the economic issues that we saw around 2008 and after, we really started to see the acceleration of other than these, very contained applications like Salesforce automation or marketing automation. And now, we see companies that are really looking to and are deploying across a broad suite of products, and particularly seeing advantage by moving to this cloud-based ERP. Now, just to give you a little bit of data that we've collected over the last few years, and we've been doing a survey now called the CloudTrack survey for over 5 years, and that data, if you trended and you look back across the whole set of data back to the original surveys that we did, you'd see that when we originally started to ask companies about this, it was really just emerging into the mainstream as a default way to consume applications. But now the data shows us really clearly that this is accelerated across this broad suite of applications, and is particularly interesting and focused around some of the areas that I think people in the past didn't think would move very quickly to the cloud. And frankly, I've even said this in the past that financials would be a slow mover to the cloud, and clearly I've been proven wrong over the last few years, because the data shows us that in fact companies are seeing great advantage to moving to these other core ERP type of applications. They're seeing great advantage, and in fact, they're using that advantage for competitive benefit and for, as Vishrup mentioned, this move into a very different style of work, a very new style of work. And a lot of my research is actually, over the last few years, has been focused around what we call emerging trends in the enterprise, and those emerging trends that have shown us that there's a significant shift in the way people want to work and the things that they use to get that work done. And it's no surprise when you saw mobile in those initial slides that mobility is kind of hand in hand with the cloud these days when you think about productivity and how you get work done. So let's look a little bit at this data, and this is fresh. This last survey was done in the fall, so it just came out of the field in October. So the few data slides that I'll show you are actually very recent take on some of the questions that we ask every year about cloud adoption. So this first one, and like I said, I think that first, the simple statement that the cloud, public cloud is the way that companies, cloud is the way companies are consuming applications in the future. I don't think that's a question anymore. In this slide, if nothing else, the weight of this slide shows how much that's shifted over the last 5 years. And, you can see traditional application spend across every category that we track is in the negative numbers now. And that just simply means that when companies are buying applications going forward, and we see this in all the data, but we also see this in all the conversations that I have, and I talk to a lot of companies about selection of products and what should they do, and strategically how should they deploy those. And I rarely have a conversation around traditional deployments anymore, around on-premises deployments, but because it's just not an economically viable way to think about it. And frankly, because of the history that we've seen from the cloud vendors, it's just such an advantage to think about moving very quickly into a much more nimble deployment, something that happens much more quickly, gives you faster to value, that sort of thing. And again, like I said, the numbers really show that. And you can see across these different categories. So CRM, of course, it was really the first cloud application to get broad adoption across all sizes of companies. But now we've moved into ERP, the HCM side. We've moved into supply chain management and also into the financial side of the application suite. And more we're seeing this accelerate as companies really do start to see the advantage of moving financials, moving supply chain into the cloud. Now, we ask most used applications. So the slide before was really about what you intend to do. So it's, where's the growth going to happen? This slide is really about where the growth has happened. So this, if you see this, and obviously, I said before, CRM was one of the first. Salesforce automation was one of the first areas to see wide adoption. So it's no surprise that that's one of the top leading areas. Marketing automation, Salesforce automation. Just behind that, we see call center, contact center kind of applications. But next to those, and frankly, there's not a wide split in these numbers. We're talking 21% down to almost 19%. So a couple of percentage points of difference in what companies are now doing, and you can see that ERP financials, ERP human resource applications, and supply chain and logistics applications are all seeing very strong growth and have seen wide adoption over the last few years. So, why has this changed, though? And I think, why did it accelerate past what a lot of analysts thought would happen? I think there's several pressures that businesses are really having to deal with today, and some of that is tied to this new connectivity that you see, from the internet and the new business models that have opened up because of the internet. Some of the new competitive, opportunities that opened up because of the internet. And if you think about business 20 years ago, if you had a new competitor, that competitor, you knew about that competitor for a couple of years probably before they actually were in business and up and operating, because they had to build facilities and hire and train, and there was the operation took a long time to build. But today, because of the internet and because of the nimble capabilities that you see in business, you can have a new competitor that pops up that you've never heard of, and they could be located anywhere in the world. And because of some of the new business models that you see and some of the new opportunities that the internet's created, they could completely change the business model around you. They could completely undercut you. So it might be price, or it might be innovation, or it might be, just simply a very different way of doing the same business that you've done in the past. So that competitive pressure has really accelerated what people want to do when they think about business systems. In other words, you need to have data, you need to have information, you need to have this dashboard information to be competitive. You need to be able to have systems that provide you in real time or near real time the capability to manage your business to a different level, because you have to be able to be nimble and flexible. You have to have those types of things to stay competitive, and really innovation is a absolute necessity today, and innovation has really changed somewhat. I mean, in the past, innovation really was just focused around building a better product, which certainly still can be. Could be a category shifting product, something that really leapfrogs the competition. Of course it can be. But the other thing that happens, and I mentioned this in the competition, from the competitive angle, is this innovation around business model. I mean, you think about businesses like Amazon or Google, companies that have leveraged the internet to create and completely disrupt an entire industry because of the capabilities that they see there. So innovation can be business model innovation as well. And again, having systems that are modern, that can support you in this new business model that we like to call sense and response. So a business model that's built around getting the right data to the right people at the right time, so they can make better and informed decisions, business decisions that really drive your business forward. That's absolutely critical. And today, these systems, the modern systems that have the user experience that you want, that support mobility and support this distributed workforce, they support the new way of work, that really is about making these informed, data-driven decisions. Those systems are in the cloud. So productivity in the information age is really tied to having systems that eliminate data silos, tied to having systems that really help you get that data out of its silo and into the right person's hands at the right time. Now, the other thing that that we see a lot, and because of the shift, and because the shift is accelerated into the cloud very quickly, we see a lot of companies that are transitioning to the cloud, and yet they still have to deal with legacy applications, or they still have some things that are very important to them for some transition period that stay on premises. The good news is that in this new hybrid environment, the companies, the vendors, the software vendors have opened up a whole new set of APIs, new ways to connect to those products, and you start to see cloud-to-cloud integration, and you start to see cloud to on-premises integration. So, taking your financials and moving those to the cloud, even though you may have to deal with some legacy systems for a while in the transition, that's a capability that you can now do. And in fact, we mentioned mergers and acquisitions as one of the drivers, and that's certainly an important thing. Today, a lot of companies have seen a lot of consolidation. A lot of industries have seen a lot of consolidation. Well, this idea of deploying cloud solutions very rapidly in divisions and having those roll up to some sort of a legacy system for the interim, that's something that we see very often these days, this hybrid operation that says, I can deploy this new nimble suite very quickly as I bring these new operating units on, and then over time I could move the whole business to that same operation or that same suite. But it's an opportunity to do something very quickly, to change something very quickly that can really help you integrate and move that business forward. Now, you also, when you talk about reasons why you are moving to the cloud, you also have to look at some of the other issues. And so routinely we ask, what are your concerns? What are the things that would perhaps make you think twice about moving to the cloud, or what are the issues that you need to deal with as you make this decision to move to the cloud? And I'm sure that when we get to the panelist part of the webinar today, we can ask a little more from our panelists about what they did specifically. But in general, in this survey, what we saw, you still see security concerns as an issue, something that companies want to make sure they understand. Now, the good news is they're from a cloud vendor perspective, there's a good set of certifications and data center security certifications and qualifications that you can look at that leading vendors have. And that's certainly one way to judge, the risk when it comes to having a cloud provider provide your data center. I will tell you this: as we go around and talk to vendors and look at what companies do, the vendors most often, frankly, have a much better security setup than a lot of the companies that we see that try to run their own data centers. You think about it, your business is not running data centers, but for a cloud provider, that is their business. It is absolutely critical for them. It's business critical for them that they prevent, or they do everything they can to prevent any sort of security breach. So that's still a concern, although I will tell you this is a much lower number this year than we'd seen in previous years, because more and more companies do understand that the vendors have a good track record here, and they really have, the leading vendors at least, have gone through the right certifications to answer this concern. Now, regulatory issues are always another piece that you have to make sure, regulatory and compliance issues, and those vary greatly by industry. But again, as the cloud providers have moved across different industries and built out different ways to offer these solutions to different industries, they have a very good track record of being able to meet and demonstrate the level of regulatory compliance that they need to actually answer those questions and provide solutions that meet those standards very well. So I think, again, it's always something you have to look at, and your industry. Some industries are more, more regulated than others, and of course you have to take a look at those concerns. But at the same time, I think you'll find when you look for solutions in the cloud that the cloud providers have very good answers for you around that. Reliability is another one that comes up pretty often, and I can tell you that if you're talking to a leading cloud provider, you can easily understand their stand on reliability because they will offer you a service level agreement. They'll have transparency into their operations, and they will in fact show you this track record of trust that they have with their clients, because that again is their business. It's extremely important to their business, and reliability is something that the leading cloud providers certainly deal with on a regular basis, and they are transparent about the way they deal with that. So again, that's a very important piece, and it's frankly, one of the things that you need to talk to your providers about, or your prospective provider about. But it's also something that I think you'll find has a very good answer if you're dealing with the right sort of vendors. Other concerns you see, governance issues, IT governance issues. Those have definitely lessened much lessened a lot over the last few years, and I think that most IT organizations are really getting to the point where they understand how to deal with the cloud, embrace the cloud, and move forward. Immaturity of the cloud, I think that one is a little bit funny because, I just said at the beginning of this that the cloud, that true cloud, public cloud applications have been around for over 16 years now. So this is not new. This is something that is established and is going forward is the way that most companies are consuming applications. And, when we do the numbers now, almost all the new license growth from across all of these application categories, almost all the new license growth over the last year or two has been in the cloud, because that's just the way companies want to consume these applications. Top 5 reasons for moving, getting access to new functionality. We talked about that a bit, and I think that's a very important piece of this. Increasing revenues, it is about the bottom line, increasing and improve, resource utilization. So look, I can take what I would have done and spent and used around, on-premises solution, and I can reallocate that to something that's business critical for me. Certainly operating a data center is not business critical for most businesses unless you're a software provider. So, resource allocation is very important. Reducing, the size of IT budgets. You can take, again, those resources and allocate them to something that is more important to you, something that can give you competitive advantage. And then give business units more direct control over, over their own sourcing of IT solutions so they get a better fit. I think this is another really common one and can be a very, positive impact, and we certainly see line of business very involved, if not completely, making the decisions now on what kinds of applications they want to use. The cloud has really helped that, because in the cloud, the opportunities, there's a lot of really strong applications available now. They are, in fact, the most modern with the newest functionality, and oftentimes they're a much better fit from a business perspective than some of the more traditional applications that you'd see. So, ERP in the cloud, and it's modern. The user experience and the functionality are important. And, you hear a lot about consumerization of IT. And consumerization of IT really was just about two different things: about the shift in where some of the innovation started. So, in other words, some of the innovation really starts in the consumer space now and moves into the enterprise. But even more so, it was about the expectations of users and what kinds of systems they wanted to use and how they wanted to use those systems. And I can tell you that, coupled with, this consumerization trend or this change in expectation, is also the empowerment that a lot of employees feel to go ahead and bring their own kind of solution into the enterprise if you don't provide something that's modern, something that meets their expectations. So, from a business perspective, it increases productivity. It also is something that can help drive kind of employee satisfaction, providing them with modern tools that meet their expectations. Cost of deployment, ease of deployment, those have been real benefits from the cloud for several years. It's something that, it's just faster to value, faster time to value. It's something that is easier to implement. There's less work to do when you implement it. It's just as simple as that. You can use it to break down data silos. You can help drive collaborative decision-making. We talked about that already. More effective resource utilization is an absolute benefit around this. And then that whole competitive advantage issue, the idea of building flexible systems that help you really be more nimble and be more flexible and be able to drive your business much more effectively because you have the data when you need the data, and you can use that to make a better business decision. So all of those things are really driven companies to look for and look at ERP in the cloud and to deploy ERP in the cloud very regularly these days. So with that, I'll stop talking and I'll move into the section where we can actually talk to a couple of companies that are using Cloud ERP and we can try to understand really what they're about. So Bishart introduced Neil and Al before, so I'm not going to go back through their introduction, but what I will do is let them do a little introduction on their companies. So, Neil, why don't you start and just give us an overview of what you're doing and what your business is about.
So, my name is Neil Collins, as was mentioned, and I work for Roku. As you can see here, we're the market leader in streaming entertainment devices for the TV, with 31,000 movies, 1,000 channels. And yesterday we announced a new product line, the Roku TV. It's an OEM partnership where Roku is the software platform. It's built directly into the television, which is part of our long-term strategy. It's a little bit of an audacious goal, but our goal is to aggregate all of the TV vendors into a common software platform, ideally the Roku platform. We were founded in 2002, and we've been working towards this strategy now for over 10 years. Based out of Saratoga here in California, with over 5 million units, so we have quite a large user base with a lot of complexity that would entail. And we've been using NetSuite now for well over 18 months. As you can see here, some of the modules that we use. What I'll speak to after this background is a lot about the performance of NetSuite and how we've been able to leverage the NetSuite platform to really grow and evolve our business, which has been just tremendously helpful.
Thanks, Neil. Alan, can you give us a quick overview on automation?
Absolutely. So my name's Al Morrison. I'm Vice President of Manufacturing for iAutomation. Our basic business is that we engineer machine control solutions. We specialize in control systems and motion systems for people who build industrial machines. We focus primarily on electrical and pneumatic-based motion. Our geography is the East Coast. We go from Maine to South Carolina. Right now we have 150 employees. 55 of those are sales engineers that are based in the field. Excuse me. Right now we're at about $70 million for company size. One of the great things that kind of led us to NetSuite is our need for access for all those guys in the field. Our catalog right now contains over 280,000 individual items that we offer for sale and over 40,000 assembly types that are available to our customers. And access to that information in the field was absolutely critical, and NetSuite turned out to be a terrific platform to do that. Maybe one other noteworthy point about iAutomation is that over the past years, we've made a move to be almost entirely cloud-based. And we can get into that a little bit more in the discussion. But, of course, we have our ERP through NetSuite out in the cloud. But, as well, our file storage, email, phone solutions, and even a web-based chat that we can access the field sales guys with are all live with us now. So short of some CAD servers, we're 100% in the cloud right now. It's something we're very excited about.
That's great. We definitely want to talk a little more about that because that certainly falls right into the trends in the survey data that I talked about earlier. So that's great. Thank you. So I'm just going to move right into the questions, and I really want to start by just trying to understand a little bit more about some of the challenges that you both were facing as you looked at at solutions, and why did you, what drove your decision? What were the things that business issues that you were trying to deal with that really made you decide to look for another solution? Neil, why don't you start?
Yeah, sure. So we were challenged with. It was a good challenge. We were growing very quickly. We've been growing very quickly the last 2.5 years or so. And some of the complexities we were facing were disjointed systems. We had, geographically, we were dispersed. We're having challenges with visibility into inventory, into demand. We're really just faced with a fundamental challenge of financial control. Meaning we had so many activities going on that were so new and so many new people in the organization that bringing it all together and really making sense of the activities of the financial performance of the company was challenging. And so it became very evident that we needed a solution. We needed to centralize this information. The solutions that we had been using were good when they were implemented the first time, but we had grown beyond that. And so for us, it was all about evolution of the company, evolution of our systems, and needing to find a solution that was not only going to meet our needs as they were at the time, but were going to allow us to scale. That we would really be able to leverage that system to scale in a very fast-paced manner.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. That's a really common theme that I've seen lately in some of the conversations that I've had with companies that have moved to a fully integrated suite of cloud-based ERP solutions. This idea that in a fast-growth industry, particularly, a fast-growth business has to really plan far enough ahead that you can really accommodate that change. And by implementing a system that is much more complete and functionally rich, it may seem like at the time it might be a little more than what you need, but you're going to grow into that so quickly that it really does prevent you from doing that painful transition more than once. So you can do your implementation, and then 2 years later get out doing another implementation or accounting cutover. That's good. Al, you want to give us a little bit of a background on what you guys were thinking about when you started looking at solutions?
Oh, absolutely. And of course, what you'll hear me say is very, very similar to what Neil's and your comments were. We're primarily a sales organization with a widespread geography. One of the problems that we faced early on was access to all the information. We wanted to make sure that the guys in the field had access to not only purchase history, but the financial performance of the customer that we were dealing with. We wanted to make sure that they had access to all the applying communications that have taken place with either customer service or inside sales along the way, so that they can be completely up to date. And prior to NetSuite, we'd have guys VPN into the various applications, and it became very, very cumbersome and in many cases impossible for the guys in the field to communicate effectively with their customer in a real-time basis. So with NetSuite, we use the embedded communication capabilities. So all the email exchanges that take place are embedded within a transaction, whether it be a sales order or a quote. All the leads, all the phone calls are noted. We can see all that. Communications back and forth with suppliers are also embedded. Likewise, the guys in the field can look at the credit status of a customer that they might be visiting. And, it really just brings the whole ability to communicate and act effectively in the field together. Another important point is as we have gone through a series of acquisitions with iAutomation growing, NetSuite again becomes a great springboard to bring those new companies into the fold, where we can, with the web-based architecture, we can go down there, deploy some new seats, train a few people, and they're part of the family that fast. It's proven to be very effective for us.
That's great. That really does talk to this, distributed workforce and kind of the new way of work, and how this, modern system, a cloud-based mobile solution like that can really increase productivity and in your case, that's that productivity equates to bottom line because that's your revenue generating in. So that's great. So as you were looking at this, obviously you looked at a lot of different solutions, and I'm sure you probably at least to some at some traditional versus cloud, and you made the decision to move to cloud. Al, you kind of hinted at this a little bit in your overview that you guys have gone all cloud now. So I'm just curious, why are you all cloud now, and what were your real evaluation criteria that you used to do that?
Well, one of the primary drivers was to get people in the widespread geography that we cover all onto a single platform. Prior to NetSuite, we had numerous email servers set up with all these shares that we had to keep up and running. We had to employ an IT staff. We had different phone systems where I couldn't just dial an extension and get a guy in another office. We wanted to be able to share files across the entire business. And so, we quickly found ourselves in a position of evaluating only those applications that gave us that capability. And, every time it led us to the cloud. I mean, we're even, the phones, how seemingly insignificant that might be, when we have, 40 some home offices and 7 storefront offices. And in order to communicate effectively, it's really important that you can just pick up that phone and get the guy just by dialing an extension. Very, very important to us. So, the chat application is another perfect example. We had a couple chat apps that ran. As soon as we put it up in the cloud, we can chat with the guys in the field in real time. If they have a problem at a customer, they just type in a quick text message. It goes right to the person that needs to. These are all in chat rooms, so other people can jump in and add support. So, the cloud has just proven to be very efficient for us in terms of our ability to respond quickly to customer need.
So it really, for you, it talks to what we were talking about around busting silos, or really helping people work together much more collaboratively to be more productive.
Absolutely.
Neil, how about you? What did Roku look at? Why cloud? Why what were your evaluation criteria as you looked at different solutions?
Well, there was one of them was just kind of a fundamental focus that we wanted to have, and the decision was made very early, which we stick to, is we want to focus on our product and our services. And by selecting a cloud application, that allows us to continue to focus development efforts, to focus kind of the day-to-day management efforts on our product and not so much on an IT system. And with that, then we can focus on, the performance of the company. We can focus on some of the challenges that we have as a consumer device. For example, we put our application in the cloud. That allows us to focus on the product, but it also allows us to focus on our go-to-market strategies. And one of our go-to-market strategies is, the holiday season. And holiday season for us is immensely important. And the reason why I bring that up is because with a cloud-based solution, we are able to leverage its ability to scale and ability to scale quickly. So during the holiday season, specifically, Black Friday, we may see a growth in a single channel of 10x, and that growth may come overnight. Now with something like NetSuite, we're able to handle that growth in orders, not only just in taking the order, but what it means to process that order and get those orders out the door and then recognize the revenue on it. That, for the most part, the infrastructure there is all cloud-based. That we don't need to worry about that. We know we've got some processes that we need to examine, but we don't need to worry about the actual infrastructure because that's not our responsibility. Our responsibility is delivering the product. So NetSuite's allowed us to really focus on delivering those products and those services, and less so on the IT side of things or the infrastructural side of things.
All right. So for you, you get this scalability that you would certainly have a hard time building into an on-premises system because you get all the elasticity of the cloud, and at the same time, you get to reallocate resources to things that are much more critical for your business. Makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. We only have a couple of people who work on NetSuite in a full-time capacity, which means we've got resources that we can put towards other products or other services in the company.
Great. Yeah, that must be a competitive advantage over what you were doing in the past when you had to use precious resources for other things that really didn't add to your business. So it makes a lot of sense. So we kind of moved to this question already, but so Neil, just to continue with that thought, what are some of the benefits then? I mean, obviously resource allocation and focus was one, but what are some of the other things that you saw by moving to the cloud?
Well, there's a couple come to mind, and I'm not sure if this is so much the cloud just versus NetSuite as a solution, but I'll go ahead with this example is visibility. Visibility has been tremendously improved. And to give you a quick example, we're in the process of closing our books for the year, and we have two SKUs. Our cost accountants going through their exercise to close the books, and they have two SKUs where the calculated average cost is slightly off from what the standard cost that was prescribed at the beginning of the period. What this means from a kind of in the trenches perspective is we have something like 200,000 transactions that took place over the course of the last 30 days. We need to go in and find what's causing this error in order for our accountants to be able to complete their routine and close the books. That exercise to analyze all of those transactions, whether it be item receipts or fulfillments or anything that could have used one of those two SKUs, it only took about 15 or 20 minutes to narrow down and understand, well, what transaction was played incorrectly and why, and go fix the process and fix the transaction, and then be able to complete the closing routine. Because we're in the cloud, we have our systems integrated, we have a central repository of information, we're able to do that analysis, we're able to do it very quickly and continue with the closing exercise. That wouldn't have been possible in a disjointed system. And for us, because of the nature of our business, a combination of web stores and warehousing and so many other applications that are already cloud-based, we had to be cloud-based to support that effort, to create that central repository.
And how much, you said you could do this in minutes. I mean, how much of a time savings was that over what you would have had to have done prior to NetSuite, prior to the cloud?
I can't even imagine trying to do that specific exercise to be honest.
That's great. Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's that whole disjointed, disconnected system, and really those data silos. That's a huge benefit. Al, how about you? How about automation? What are some of the things that you saw from moving to NetSuite, moving to the cloud?
Well, again, this is probably more NetSuite specific, as Neil said earlier, but, it comes down to the availability of the data, the integration of the data. What we really look for with the guys in the field is ways that we can improve the customer experience. And with NetSuite and with the integrated communications and access to financials, the guy in the field can open a transaction, open a quote, open a customer record, and see the entire history in real time. We have people in the customer service and inside Salesforce who constantly follow up on supplier commitments, components that go into assemblies for our customers. And when the guys in the field need this information, they can log in, they can look at the transaction live and see, up to the minute status on material availability, shipping commitments, price changes or impact to price if there are any. So it's been absolutely tremendous. It's helped our customer experience and the time that it takes us to deliver information to the customers to a whole nother level. It's really been a boon for us. So, it comes down to the data integration and the availability of that data in the field.
Great. Well, I want to get to this advice question, but I was thinking, Vishnu, do you have any questions that we should probably address? Why don't we save the closing comments for a bit of advice, and let's just see if there are any questions from the audience that we ought to answer.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Yes, we do have actually a few questions. One of the questions I think is for you, Michael, is that as you in your research, do you see any trend in the type of companies that are moving to cloud from industry's perspective as well as a company size? What do you see?
Well, I mean, I will tell you that it's maybe more geographic difference than anything today. I cut some of the data that we got back in that survey based on company size, and to be honest, there's almost no difference in the type of systems that are being deployed based on a mid-market company or a large company. I will say that that there was perhaps a bit more. Companies were a bit more aggressive that also tended to be faster growth. Maybe I'd consider them a little more innovative, but the faster growth companies, no matter what their size were, tended to be more aggressively moving to the cloud. But in general, companies across all size bands were moving. Now, I will say that in the very, very large enterprise, it tends to be more application by application. So in other words, they're not ripping out an entire suite of products and putting in a new system today. They're replacing their financials, and then they're replacing their benefit system or their HCM system or whatever. They tend to do it one system at a time because it is such a mass scale for very large companies. Although a lot of those companies are using departmental full solutions in a departmental deployment and then roll that up to some other system. So that's actually also very common. But for the mid-market companies, it's really common to see them just replace everything with a full suite of products because there's such advantage to them for moving to the cloud and for moving in a very integrated way. And I mean, you heard Al and Neil talk about data silos and being able to do things once things are fully integrated across a whole set of products. I think that's a huge benefit across the board. It's just in a mid-market deployment, or a departmental deployment, it's easier to do that all at once and really move across that whole suite of products. But perhaps in the large enterprise, you have to do it in a more phased approach.
Thank you, Michael. So you are definitely seeing where companies tend to preserve the investment that they have made in ERP on-premises may be, and then trying to move to cloud in a subsidiary or a departmental.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Thank you, Michael,
absolutely.
for that. All right. I do have one other question, and then we can hand it over to you, Michael. Is that in your presentation, Michael? Also, I'm going to ask Neil and Alan to respond. But in your presentation, you said the number one concern or inhibitor was security. So the question is basically, what were some of the objections that you had within your organization as you were considering moving to cloud, and how did you overcome them? So if you can respond to that, Neil from Roku, that would be great. And then Alan, if you can also respond as well thereafter.
Yeah, so I think, with security, it's the access to data. In the case of if there's some sort of catastrophic failure, would we have access to our data? If something happened in NetSuite, and then just security around like licensing itself. Those were some questions and some concerns that came up during the evaluation exercise. But I think that, for the most part, NetSuite SLA let us feel very much at ease, and we didn't really get too hung up on that. I don't think that was too much of a concern for us.
Sure. Alan, how about you? What were some of the concerns or objections, if you will, that you faced as you guys were moving over to cloud?
Well, to tell you the truth, the biggest challenges that we got from our workforce when it came to moving to the cloud was just uptime. So, service and the availability of all those services. With regard to NetSuite in particular, I can only repeat what Neil said, which is the NetSuite SLA is speaks for itself. In the more than 8 years that we've had our instance of NetSuite deployed, I can tell you in minutes the amount of downtime that we've experienced. So, they really back it up with performance, and we've not seen a problem with uptime or security, really from any of the cloud-based applications that we have. I think you made the point earlier, Michael, that it's the data center's business to manage security, and it's really great for us as a user to not have to concern ourselves with the data being pirated in some way or accessed in ways that we didn't want it to be. I can say that the biggest concern was just uptime, particularly for what we'll call the main office sites. We do have a fairly robust connectivity solution to make sure that if somebody hits a pole, that we have backup internet connections, because our entire business runs through that one wire. So we have double and triple redundancies to get us out to the cloud. But after that, we rely on our suppliers to provide us with a solid connection and secure data.
Thank you, Alan. Michael, I'll hand it over to you.
Great, thank you. So just as a wrap up from each of you, what kind of advice would you give the audience as they're thinking about moving to the cloud, thinking about NetSuite, thinking about ERP in the cloud? Neil, why don't you start?
Okay, so I guess I've got two sentiments here around advice. The first is basic project management. Get the requirements up front. Be really diligent in defining what it is that you're looking for, what are the requirements out of the system, and then take that a step further and continue that requirement definition exercise down throughout the organization. It will help so much during any implementation of any system is really being very clear on what you're trying to accomplish up front. As I've seen implementations that struggle with scope creep and just trying to really clarify what we're trying to accomplish at a given moment. So defining requirements up front is a big plus. And then the second is, as Mike had mentioned, that mid-sized companies will replace their entire ecosystem. The second piece of advice here is that really be very attentive to the impact of such significant change on people. And the reason why I say that is because the system is kind of the third focus when doing an implementation or a change like this. The big focus has got to be on the people and the process. And then the IT system comes kind of last, but really addressing the human nature and really focusing on the impact of the change and helping people get through the change of everything they've known how to do is now changing. Help them through that evolution will really help with any type of implementation down the road.
Great, thanks, Neil. Alan, how about you?
Well, whenever you make a change like this, it's a fairly significant effort that involves, not only changes to the way you do business, but a lot of cultural change. And I think that speaks a little bit to the people point that was just made. In our experience, what we maybe didn't do as good a job as we could have, and this is the advice I would offer anyone, is fully understand the business case that you're trying to move over. It's not enough to say that the functionality exists, but you need to make sure that the native process and the system you're moving into fits with the way you do business. And, of course, some of the advice has always been, well, design your process around the system, and that can work to an extent, but you need to give very careful consideration to, the native flow of a transaction or a process in the system you're going to versus the way your business works. And likewise, when you come to actually pull the trigger, one of the areas that we struggled with a little bit was the structure of data as it's being imported. And that may have been a unique problem to us, only in that we were migrating from several systems into a single instance of NetSuite and aligning the record types and mapping the data fields correctly so that everything comes in and looks like it came from the same place was a little bit of a headache for us. So, pay very close attention to the business case and your import effort. And, again, that just really comes back to your due diligence up front, understanding, and get to know your project leader very well. You're going to be best friends for a long time.
That sounds good. Thanks, Alan. So, Bifford, I'm going to turn this back over to you. I just want to say thanks to the audience for hanging with us through this, and hopefully you heard some good, useful tidbits out of it. So, thank you all.